Right. We are up to chapter 30, verse 3, Parshas Vayetzei. Rachel has just asked Yaakov to give her children, and Yaakov gets angry at Rachel, and he says, "Atah chasel kemanochim, I am place of God who has prevented you from having children." That's Yaakov's response. So verse 3, Vatomer, and Rachel says, Hine amasi Bilah, here's my maid Bilah, bo eleha, be with her. Rachel said to Yaakov, behold, here is my maid Bilah, bo eleha, v'telet al berkai, so that she may bear upon my knees, v'baneh gam anochi mimena, and I will build children from her. So let's see what Rashi says, al berkai, Kitargumo va'ana erabe, I will raise the children. By the way, I always thought that people today have surrogacy, that the Torah was the first. I mean, I'm sure there are other ancient sources also. The Torah understands these concepts of having another person be the physical mother, the biological mother, the birth mother, but then a different mother raising the child. V'ibaneh gam anochi, and I will also be built, Rachel says. So Rashi says, Mahu gam, what does it mean by I will also? V'ibaneh gam anochi, also I. Yeah, so we don't have Rabbi Yosef on to share the screen. Sorry about that. So he says, Amralo, she said to Yaakov, Zikeincha Avraham, Ayulo banim meHagar. Your grandfather Abraham, he had sons from Hagar. Ve'Hagar masnav keneged Sarah. And even though he had children from Hagar, Hagar masnav is usually the expression when you go out to battle. So it's like he went into battle opposite Sarah. He was trying very hard for her to have children. Amarlah, and he said to her, Zekinti achnisa tzarasa levesa. So basically, Yaakov, what Rachel says to Yaakov, your grandfather Avraham, he had children from Hagar, and yet he still kept davening for Sarah. So she responds, Amara, Yaakov responds to her, Zikenti achnisa tzarata leveta. My grandmother brought her Sarah. Sarah is a word for a co-wife. She brought her co-wife into the house. So Amralo, she said to him, if that's what's stopping it, amasi Bilah. Here's my maid Bilah, v'ibaneh gam anochi kasara, and I'll build up just like Sarah did. So Yaakov was saying, if you want me to have children, for you, it has to be because you need this additional merit of having the concubine also raise children. Okay, Vatar Bilah Vateled Yaakov Ben, and Bilah conceived and she gave birth to a son for Yaakov. Vatomer Rachel, and Rachel said, Danani Elokim, God has judged me. Vigam Shema Bekoli, he heard my voice. Vayiten li bein, he gave me a son. Al Kain Karash Shmo Dan. Therefore, she called him Dan. So it's always interesting to me that the Torah says that Bilah gave birth a son for Jacob, but Rachel says she gave birth for a son for me. The pasuk says, the Rashi says, Danani Elokim, God has judged me. Danani, he has judged me. Vizikani, and he has acquitted me. Meaning to say, judge me usually means judge me harshly. But and you could have read this pasuk as being judged harshly by saying Rachel can't have a child, but Bilah does, and that proves that the problem was with Rachel and not with Yaakov. And also it proves that there was something spiritually problematic with Rachel. But instead, Rashi reads it as Zikani. God has acquitted me because we're saying that Rachel was saying, this is like my child. It's interesting to note here that the Bereshis Rabbah has a slightly different version, which changes the whole meaning. The Bereshis Rabbah version reads, Danani v'chivani vizikani. God judged me, found me guilty, and then God acquitted me. Meaning Rachel is cognizant that she was at fault. That's a different version. Yes, Jerry.
Yes, Dan means judgment. The name Dan means judgment.
Yes.
Okay. Well, the whole Laban family were idol worshippers. So maybe that's what Rashi is talking about, that she had to be, that she was sinful and therefore didn't deserve having a child, but her husband was a Jew and not an idol worshiper.
It could be, but maybe that's what it was. But the interest and there is this concept that she takes the idols towards the end of the portion, but it could be connected to the idolatry. But Leah was also from that family, and she's very fruitful, very fertile.
Yeah.
So see what happens.
Well, remember, the idols were only found with Rachel, not with Leah or the other two concubines.
Yeah, it's a very, 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 very salient point. It's a good point. We have to consider that. But it's not the way Rashi sees the incident with the idols, but that is something to think about. The next verse says, Vatar Od, she conceived again, Vateled Bilhah, Shivchas Rachel Ben Sheni Yaakov. And she conceived again, and Bilhah, the maid of Rachel, gave birth to a second son for Jacob. Vatomer Rachel, and Rachel said, Naftue Elok. And so she gave birth to a second son. And what does she call? What does Rachel say? Naftue Elokim. Niftalti emachosi gam yacholti vatikra shemo Naftali. And Rachel said, Naftue, I have twisted with turnings to God. Niftalti emachosai. I've twisted to be with my sister. Gam yacholti. And I also prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. Let's see what I just translated it the way this version of the Torah of the Chumash, this Art Scroll version with the commentary of Rashi translates it. Let's see what Rashi says about the word Naftule. It's a very controversial word. So what is the word Naftule Elokim? Rashi says Menachem ben Seruk Perusho, Menachem ibn Saruk. Who is Menachem ibn Saruk? So Menachem ibn Saruk was a commentary that Rashi frequently comments, frequently quotes. He lived from around the year, he died around the year 980. So he was 10th century commentary. And he wrote a work that was called the Machberes. Machberes means a notebook. So this was a dictionary that was frequently quoted by Rashi, and it states Naftui Elokim. Menachem ben Sirach Perusho b'Machberes Tzamid Pasil. It's a Tzamid Patil, meaning to say he relates it to the word Patil, like a cover that was fastened tight. So here it means Chiburim. So if Naftuli means a cover that was tightly closed, here it means the word Naftali means Nitchabarti emachosi. I become attached to my sister. With Kos Labanim, I'm also worthy of sons. Meaning to say that she's saying Naftalti emachosai, that Rachel's saying I've become attached to my sister. Just 1 second. And Rashi says, I disagree. He says, Lashon, the way I explain it, Lashon ikesh uftaltal means twisted and stubborn. Ikesh Like this is a generation, we're told the Jewish people are Dori Keshuv Tal, a generation of stubbornness and twisting, meaning air means sinful. Nit akashti. I was stubborn with my beseechings, and I beseeched God with many different ways to beseech. And therefore, I try many different ways to be equal to my sister. Okay, yes, Jerry.
It seems that Rachel is the one who names Bilhah's child. Bilhah has no agency in naming her own child. Is that correct?
That is what the verse says, that she called his name Dan and she called his name Naphtali. Rachel is the one. She sees those children as her children.
It says that they were not her biological children. She treated them as her own.
Exactly. She wants there. That's what I said. This is surrogacy.
Yeah, right. But it's too bad that Bilhah has no say in naming her own child that she gave birth to.
On the other hand, we could say what a blessing that Rachel, who was the covenantal mother, that she has the ability to name the children. That way it was done almost prophetically. So the next Rashi says, Gam Yacholti, I've prevailed, Hiskim al Yadi, that she didn't prevail over God, but she prevailed in God hearing her prayer. Unkos Tergame, and Unkos explains that this word Yachol Naftuli Elokim Niftalti means Lashon Tfilah. Naphtali is an expression of prayer. Kamo Nipulei Elokim Nitpalalti. So Unkos is basically saying, let's see, that's what Unkos says. Va'ameret Rachel. I'm reading the Unkos. Rachel said, Kabel Hashem Ha'uti. God has accepted my requests. Be'itchanunusi, with my beseechings. Bitsausi, with my prayer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah.
And that's what Unkos, how Unkos translates it. And so therefore, Nipulei Elokim Nispalalti, I was accepted in my praying. Bakashot HaChavivot Lefanav, my requests before him. Niskabalti, I was accepted. Ka'achosi, like my sister. Niftalti means Niskablat Filaso, my prayer has been accepted. There are many examples where these words are like contracted like this. So basically, Unkos is saying, Nipule Elokim Nispalalti, that Naphtali is related to the word tefillah, the expression of prayer. I was praying and my prayer was answered.
Does Steinsaltz have anything to say about the translation of the word?
I don't have the Steinsaltz in front of me. Maybe somebody does.
It's very negative.
What does Rabbi Steinsaltz say?
It says, Rachel said, I engaged in a great struggle, not too late, with my sister. I fought with her in a mighty battle over children, and I prevailed.
Yeah, so that is like the first approach of Rashi. Well, no, actually, like the second approach of Rashi. I was stubborn, I was persistent to be equal to my sister.
Uh-huh.
But it's not exactly, you're right, Rachel is saying it's not exactly the same.
This idea of struggling, the next verse is that Leah then gets, it's sort of like a competition. She gets her maid servant to have a child. So
it is
the surrogacy becomes, so the fighting feels like the right image.
Yeah. Could be. I don't know. We see basically three approaches here. Either it means connected, either it means stubborn, or beseechments, or it means prayer. Leah saw that she had stopped being able to give birth. So she takes her maid, Vatitina Sal Yaakov Lisha. She gives her to Yaakov as a wife. I mean, why? What's her thought process? She has children. Why does she need more? That's
Why
what
not?
well,
God says pru urvu.
yeah, I guess that's so, but that's not, it's interesting. I mean, all the cases until now in the Torah of taking the concubine to have children was where the mother did not have children yet, where the covenantal mother did not have the children. But now, even though the covenantal mother has children, she still wants the concubine. So that's Rashi doesn't comment on that anyway. So we go on.
Or jealousy.
Could be.
I think she
So-
wants, like, to one up.
Well, she already was one up. She had 4, and Rachel had 2.
Yeah, I know, but
Bill had 2, so she was already 2 up, patting her lead.
yeah, but then Rachel, yeah.
So, yeah, it's a foreshadow. But Telet Zilpah Shechfas Leah, and Zilpah, who was the maid of Leah, she gave birth to Yaakov Ben. She gave birth to a son for Yaakov. Rashi tells us something very interesting. Pekua Nemar Herayon. About all of the other wives, it says they become pregnant, Batahar, they conceived. But in this case, Chutz mi Zilpah, with the exception of Zilpah, it doesn't say that. It just says she gave birth. Afisha said Bachura Mikuan, she was the youngest. Vitinokes Bashanim, and she was basically a child. So her period was incomplete. Ve'ein hi rayon nikarba. And so therefore, they didn't notice when she was pregnant, because usually you could tell when your period stops. But it was an inconsistent period because she was just starting. And so therefore, that's what it's teaching us.
A child bride.
Well, she wasn't exactly a child by biblical standard because she was around that age. She was around 12. Ukidelo Ramos Yaakov, in order to trick Yaakov, Nisana Lavan Leah. That's why Zilpah was given by Lavan to Leah. Shelo Yavin. So Yaakov shouldn't understand Shemachnisin Lois Leah, that he shouldn't realize that he was bringing in Leah. Shekach Minhag Litain Shivcha Gedola Gdola Vaktana Ktana. So that's what Rashi is pointing out. Usually you gave the older maid to the older daughter and the younger maid to the younger daughter, but Lavan was tricking Yaakov into thinking he was marrying Rachel on the wedding night. So he gave the younger maid, and that's why Bilhah was older than Zilpah, because Bilhah didn't have a problem. She was pregnant, and they recognized her pregnancy, but because she continued, because that's the cessation of her period. But on the other hand, Zilpah was an inconsistent period because she was younger. That's the reading Rashi makes. Vatomer Leah, and Leah says, now this is what's called a kriyuk tib. It's read one way, it's written another way. Leah says, we read it, even though it's written as one word, we read it as 2 words. Ba God. Vatikra Shemo, God. So she says, Ba God. And what does Rashi say that means? Ba God, Ba Mazel Tov. A good Mazel has come. A Mazel is like the constellation, and she's saying a good Mazel has come. Kamo Gadi v'sanukla. It's like the phrase in Shabbos where it says, God Gadi v'sanukla. May my good sign show itself and not be tired. V'domim lo ha'orchim with God shulchan. Hello. So one who arranges, who sets their table for the sign. Okay, so that's what it means. Midrash Agadah, this is one of my favorite midrashim. Why is he called Gad? Midrash Agadah, the reason why he's called Gad, Shenolad Mahul. God was born circumcised. Like it states, Godu Ilana. Godu means to cut down a tree. And so he was born circumcised. He has come cut. Ba-God, he has come circumcised. Ba-God, I don't know why Rashi says it's written as one word, that there's a distinction here, Kri Uksiv. This is actually going to be tomorrow's Daf Yomi. Why are there many times in the Torah, Tanakh, where it's written one way and read another way? Rashi says, I don't know why. That's in this case.
Is that the first time Rashi said, I don't know?
No, Rashi says, I don't know. He's not embarrassed to say that. He doesn't say it every page, and it wouldn't be a great work. But he does say it when he doesn't know. He does say it. And here he says, I don't know why this is written. Vatomer, Batela Zilpah Shefchas Leah ben Sheni Yaakov. And then Zilpah, then Zilpah gives birth, the maid of Leah gives birth to a second son to Jacob. Again, here, why do we need to be told that she was the maid of Leah? We just knew that. We just heard that. But it repeats it. Vatomer Leah ba'ashri ki yishruni banot. I guess it's trying to emphasize that even though she had a child, she still remained the concubine. And Leah said, ba'ashri, my good fortune, ki yishruni banot, because women have deemed me fortunate. V'tikrat shmo Asher. And she calls this second child to Zilpah Asher. So far we've had 8 children born. 8 children. We've had the 4 of Leah, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. We had the 2 from Bilhah, Dan and Naphtali. We have the 2 from Zilpah, which are Gad and Asher. And now we have an interruption. Vayelach Reuven b'meik tzir chitim, and Reuven walked out in the time of the wheat harvest. Vayimtza dudaim. Vayimtza dudaim basada, and he found dudaim in the field. Vayaveo sama Leah imo, and he brought them to Leah, his mother. Vatomer Rachel Leah, Tanina li midudaim b'noich. And Rachel said to Leah, give me some of the dudaim. Let's see, what are these dudaim? So, by the way, Rashi does not tell us. Rashi does tell us. Excuse me, I made a mistake. Rashi tells us. Let's see what Rashi says. In the time of the wheat harvest, like Gitshif Kanshal Shvatim, it was telling us the praise of the tribes. She'eta Katziraya, that it was the time of the harvest. For Pashat Yado Begezel, Avi Chitim Usaorim. It's telling us that it was a time of the harvest, and Reuben didn't steal wheat or barley. Ela Devar Hefker, She'ena Adam Makbidbo. He brought something nobody cares about. If I wasn't afraid of contradicting Rashi and the Talmud, which Rashi is quoting, I would say, why would you say that this is something that nobody cares about? It's clearly the case that this was like a fertility flower. He's not just bringing his mother flowers. I don't even know when it started to be the flowers as an aesthetic thing to look in your house and make your home look beautiful. I don't know when that happened, but he's bringing these flowers because they're utilitarian. They can help her get pregnant. What are the dudaim? Rashi says sigle, which he says asefu. It's an herb. Ubelashon Yishmael yasmin. In Arabic, it's called yasmin, jasmine. But in Rashi's commentary to the Talmud, he translates it as viola, which is violet. And so that's how Rashi. Most people understand it, most commentaries that I've seen understand it not as jasmine, but as a mandrake. That's how it's usually depicted, as a mandrake. Now, if you look up mandrake in the internet, you'll see that mandrake was a flower that was always believed to have a lot of magical, dangerous power. Because I think it's because the mandrakes have like this human face. Because they have like this human face, therefore, because of this human face, people got flipped out by seeing it. They got scared. You look up mandrakes. So that's I have some mandrake potion. I bought it once. It's very expensive. I bought like around a vial of it for like $100-something. And you shouldn't drink it because it says it'll make you nauseous and all the stuff will come out of your body. It's an emetic. And they should give it to people before their colonoscopies. I'm just saying, like, it's poisonous. It's like the stuff they give you.
I mean, Steinsaltz does say, I assume this is his, he's not always clear what's his words and what's from the Torah, but he says, well, some commentaries maintain that mandrake was a folk remedy for barrenness.
Oh, so he calls it a mandrake.
It's more likely that Rachel wanted them for the same reason as Reuben, for their beauty and fragrance.
On what basis does he say that?
Yeah, there's a footnote, and I'm having trouble. It says footnote 12, but I can't figure out.
Yeah, the footnote's in the back of the book. I mean, it's hard for me to say. Like, there's no evidence that it was for beauty and fragrance.
What does Steinsaltz have to say?
That's what he just said. That Rabbi Steinsaltz says that it was for either for fertility potion or for beauty and fragrance.
Uh-huh.
So
Seder Olam Rambam.
okay, so
Rambam.
he says the Rambam. Well, he's quoting the Rambam as a source. Okay, I mean, who am I to argue with the great and holy Rambam? But I was just thinking that on my own, that it sounds more logical that from the flow of the field, that it's not like Rachel was just trying to get flowers, that there was something very special about this flower, that this was a magical flower. And this flower had a fertility potion.
Mhm.
We'll just do one more verse and then we'll stop and then pray. Vatomer la, and Leah responds, it's not enough. He took my husband. You've also taken you want my mandrakes of my son? My son's mandrakes? She said, let him sleep. Yaakov will stay with you tonight in exchange for your mandrakes. See, it only makes sense to say, otherwise Rachel really looks like a heel. But if you say that there was this magical power, this fertility potion, then what Rachel's doing makes sense. She's paying a lot of money for fertility treatment. I mean, not money, currency. So then it makes sense. Otherwise, we're saying like Rachel really looks like a heel. Like, yeah, I like the flowers more than being with my husband. So what does Rashi say? It's a question. This too? You want to take my dudaim? So Rashi says, the verse says, so this was my night to be with him. I'll give it to you in exchange for your dudaim. Wow. So Rashi says Rachel was punished for this because she was disrespectful when it came to the sleeping with the righteous. She did not merit to be buried with him and sleep with him eternally in the grave. Wow. That's a very harsh statement. But okay, we'll stop here. Okay.